The multiverse is a tapestry of infinite realities, each with its own immutable laws. But what happens when a thread from one universe tears through into another, bringing power that shouldn't exist? When dimensions collide, reality doesn't break. It simply discovers that some rules were never universal to begin with. And when an immortal vampire god falls screaming with laughter into a world that thought it understood monsters, every definition of terror must be rewritten in blood and manic giggles. The conjunction of spheres had happened over 1,000 years ago. The catastrophic event that merged multiple dimensions and deposited monsters across the continent. Mages studied it. Elves remembered it. Witchers hunted what crawled through. Everyone agreed it was over. On a historical apocalypse relegated to ancient texts and drunken tavern tales. They were wrong. On a moonless night over the war-torn region of Velen, reality tore open like wet parchment. Not with the grandeur of ancient cataclysm, but with something almost casual. A spatial wound that bled crimson light and the sound of something laughing. The rift crackled with energies that made the air taste like copper and graveyard soil, dimensional boundaries screaming as they were violated. And through that screaming tear in existence, Alucard fell. Not stumbled, not transported with dignity. Fell, arms spread wide, red coat billowing, sunglasses somehow still perfectly positioned on his grinning face as he plummeted toward the Pontar River Valley like a meteor wearing vintage fashion. "Whee!" His voice echoed across the night sky, a delighted and utterly deranged. "This is either the best vacation ever or I'm having a stroke. Honestly, I'm fine with either." He hit the ground outside a small village with enough force to crater the earth, a shockwave of displaced dirt and grass radiating outward. When the dust settled, Alucard stood in the center of a 20-foot impact zone, brushing non-existent dirt from his immaculate coat. His grin widened as he surveyed his surroundings. Crude wooden houses, muddy paths, the unmistakable medieval poverty aesthetic. "Oh my God," he said, looking around with childlike wonder. "Did I just fall into a Renaissance fair? Because if someone tries to sell me a turkey leg, I'm going to lose my shit." The villagers, those brave or stupid enough to investigate the apocalyptic noise, emerged from their homes with torches and pitchforks. They saw a tall man in an elaborate red coat and wide-brimmed hat, pale skin that seemed to drink in the torchlight, and a smile that promised violence wrapped in holiday cheer. "Demon!" someone shouted. "Fetch the Witcher." "Demon?" Alucard's grin somehow widened further, revealing teeth that were suddenly noticeably too sharp. "Oh, sweetie, if I had a crown for every time someone called me that, I'd have, well, several crowns. I'd open a crown store. Crown town, population, me and my crowns." He took a step forward, and the torchlight seemed to bend away from him, shadows pooling at his feet like oil. The villagers backed up instinctively, some primal part of their brains recognizing apex predator when they saw it, even if they'd never encountered anything like this before. "Now then," Alucard continued, is rolling his shoulders and producing his Kasul pistol from inside his coat with theatrical flourish. "I have several questions. 1. Where the fuck am I? 2. When the fuck am I? And 3. He paused, tilting his head as if listening to something only he could hear. "Do you people have a Starbucks? Because I could really go for a pumpkin spice latte, and I will burn this entire village down if the answer disappoints me." An old woman, either brave or senile, stepped forward. "You're in Velen, demon. The war's made monsters of us all, but you're something worse." "Velen?" Alucard blinked behind his sunglasses. "That's not a place. That's a sound someone makes when they're choking. Velen. Velen. He tested the word, then shrugged. You know what? I've invaded worse places. There was this one dimension that was just screaming and geometry. Terrible Yelp reviews, would not recommend. The sound of hoofbeats interrupted his rambling. From the darkness rode a figure on a black mare, silver sword gleaming on his back, another blade, steel on his hip. White hair caught the moonlight. Cat-like yellow eyes took in the scene with professional assessment. Crater, terrified villagers, and the thing in red, standing at the center like a punchline to a joke nobody wanted to hear. Geralt of Rivia, the White Wolf, butcher of Blaviken, had seen a lot of monsters in his nearly century of life. He'd fought griffins, drowners, wraiths, and even higher vampires. His Witcher senses, enhanced beyond human limits through brutal mutations, could detect the supernatural like a bloodhound scenting rot. And what his senses told him about the man in red made his hand drift toward his silver sword unconsciously. Vampire? Definitely vampire. But wrong. So completely wrong. The usual vampire signature was there. Undeath, blood hunger, predatory nature. But underneath it was something else. Something that made his medallion vibrate against his chest so hard it felt like it might tear free. This wasn't just powerful. This was layered, like staring into a mass grave that was also somehow alive, screaming and having the time of its unlife. Witcher, a villager called out. Thank the gods you're here. This thing fell from the sky like a sexy meteor. Alucard interrupted, spinning to face Geralt with arms spread wide. Oh, now this is interesting. You smell like chemicals, mutations, trauma? He inhaled deeply, theatrically. Oh, definitely trauma. It's like someone made a human smoothie and added a pinch of monster for flavor. I love it. Geralt dismounted slowly, keeping his movements non-threatening but ready. His hand stayed near his sword hilt. I'm going to need you to explain what you are and what you want, preferably before I have to kill you. Alucard's laugh echoed across Velen like shattering glass. Oh, buddy, the vampire said, removing his sunglasses to reveal eyes that glowed like crimson hellfire in the darkness. You could try to kill me. Hell, I'd encourage it. It's been weeks since someone made a serious attempt, and I'm going through withdrawal. But here's a fun fact. He leaned forward conspiratorially. I'm what you might call biblically unkillable. Like Old Testament unkillable. Unlike God looked at me and said, that's fucked up even for me, unkillable. The air between them grew heavy. Geralt's Witcher instinct screamed contradictory warnings. Vampire, use silver. Elder predator, extreme caution. Supernatural anomaly, call for backup. Completely insane, unpredictable. Name's Alucard, the vampire continued, replacing his sunglasses. And judging by your Hot Topic cosplay and weapons that look like they came from the clearance section of Medieval Depot, I'm guessing I'm not in Kansas anymore. Or London, or any dimension I've previously decimated. If you want to see more crossover battles and unexpected universe collisions, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and universe you'd want to see in the comments below. Let's explore the infinite together. Geralt's jaw tightened. And he'd negotiated with vampires before. Higher vampires could be reasoned with. Some were even civilized. But this thing radiated chaos like heat from a forge. Still, information first, violence second. You're in Velen, Geralt said carefully. Northern Kingdoms, the continent. If you don't know where that is, you're either from very far away or another dimension? Alucard finished. Oh, absolutely. See, I was chasing this Nazi vampire. Long story, involves a lot of justified genocide. And then there was this thing in the air, like reality was having an aneurysm, and I thought, fuck it, I'm immortal, and jumped in. Now I'm here, you're here, everyone's here. And I'm thinking we should really get to the part where you try to kill me so I can laugh, and then we can be friends. The villagers had backed away entirely now, some fleeing to their homes. Smart. Geralt wished he could join them. I don't want to fight you, Geralt said, which was true. Every instinct told him fighting this thing would be like trying to wrestle a hurricane. But you will, Alucard countered, stepping closer. The shadows moved with him, independent of the torchlight. Because that's what you do, right? Witcher? You hunt monsters? Well, congratulations. His grin became something that belonged on stained glass windows, warning about hell. You just found the biggest one. Geralt had learned long ago that sometimes the best way to survive a contract was to avoid fighting entirely. Witchers weren't heroes. They were professionals, and professionals knew when a job was beyond their pay grade. The thing calling itself Alucard radiated wrongness like a corpse radiated stench. But there was something else there too. Curiosity. The vampire wasn't attacking, wasn't feeding, just talking. Rambling, really. Like a madman given immortality in a comedy routine. I'm not here to fight you, Geralt repeated, this time with more firmness. But I need to know what your intentions are. Velen's already drowning in war and monsters. We don't need another threat. Alucard cocked his head, genuinely seeming to consider this. Intentions. My intentions are to figure out where the hell I am, find something entertaining, and ideally discover if this dimension has anything that can make me feel something other than crushing existential boredom. He paused. Also, maybe find a way home. But honestly, not a priority. My boss is probably fine. Police girl can handle herself. And if the world burns while I'm gone, well, he shrugged elaborately. I've burned several worlds. It's kind of my thing. The Witcher's enhanced hearing caught the shift in the vampire's tone. Playful on the surface, but underneath, something ancient and genuinely inhuman. This wasn't a monster. This was a force of nature that happened to wear the shape of a man and enjoyed making jokes while ending lives. You mentioned Nazis? Geralt said, trying a different approach. And vampires. Your world has different types? Oh, fuck yes. Alucard's enthusiasm was immediate and terrifying. We've got your basic bitch vampires who die if you stake them. Freaks, that's what we call artificial vampires. Very rude, very flammable. Then you've got your proper vampires, old bloodlines, actual undead with dignity. He gestured to himself. And then you've got me. I'm what happens when you take the original vampire, the Count himself, strip away every restraint, and give him a gun collection and severe ADHD. I've got more souls in here. He tapped his chest. Then you've got years of life, Witcher. And every single one of them died screaming. The medallion around Geralt's neck vibrated harder. The vampire wasn't lying. Witchers could sense deception in monsters, and there was nothing but truth in that horrifying confession. Millions of lives, absorbed and imprisoned. It was beyond anything the continent had encountered. Higher vampires here regenerate, Geralt said carefully. They're nearly impossible to kill. Silver doesn't work on them. Only another higher vampire can truly end one. Alucard's eyes gleamed with interest behind his crimson lenses. Ooh, this dimension has rules. I love rules. They're so fun to break. He stepped closer, and Geralt fought the urge to draw his blade. Tell me, Witcher, what's your name, by the way? I like to know who I'm traumatizing. Geralt of Rivia. Geralt. Jerry. G-Money. White Wolf. Oh yeah, I heard them call you that. Very dramatic. 10 out of 10 for branding. Alucard circled him like a shark examining prey. So, Jerry, these higher vampires of yours, how high are we talking? Because I'm pretty sure I'm operating on a scale that breaks whatever measurement system you're using. Before Geralt could respond, a sound cut through the night. The distinctive whistle of an arrow in flight. 3 bolts streaked toward Alucard from the tree line, aimed with professional precision at head, heart, and throat. The vampire didn't dodge. The arrows hit and passed through him like he was made of smoke. Alucard's form shimmered, becoming shadow and red mist for a heartbeat before solidifying again. He looked down at where the projectiles had been, then up toward the trees where the ambush had originated. Was that supposed to hurt? He asked conversationally. Because if so, you might want to check your equipment. Those things went through me like I was your mom, easy and disappointing. From the forest emerged 3 figures, 2 men and a woman, all bearing the weathered look of professional soldiers. Scoia'tael, Geralt realized. Elven guerrillas, and their faces showed a mixture of confusion and dawning horror as they realized their ambush had failed spectacularly. Demon! The lead elf shouted, knocking another arrow. You're on sacred ground. Leave now, or what? Alucard's voice dropped several octaves, losing all playfulness. The temperature plummeted. Frost formed on the grass around his feet. You'll shoot me again? Please, please do it again. I want you to really commit to this mistake. The woman fired. This time her arrow was wrapped in some kind of oil-soaked cloth, burning as it flew. It struck Alucard in the eye. There was a wet, sizzling sound. Then Alucard reached up, pulled the flaming arrow out of his eye socket, examined it with his remaining good eye, and smiled as the ruined eye regenerated in real time, flesh knitting, blood vessels weaving, no pupil reforming like a flower blooming and fast forward. Okay, now we're having fun, he exclaimed, crushing the arrow in his fist. You know what? I'm feeling generous. You 3 have exactly 10 seconds to run before I show you what a real predator looks like. And Jerry, he glanced at Geralt, you might want to close your eyes. This is going to get messy and I'd hate to traumatize my new friend. Don't, Geralt said, stepping between Alucard and the elves. They're just defending their territory. This war has everyone on edge. War? Alucard's grin returned. Oh, buddy, you can't just drop the W word and expect me not to get excited. Who's fighting? What are the sides? Are there war crimes? Please tell me there are war crimes. I love war crimes. The Scoia'tael were backing away now, onto their professional combat training overridden by survival instinct. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They'd fought humans, dwarves, witchers, even monsters. But this thing that looked like a man and laughed like a hyena while regenerating from impossible wounds, that was beyond their experience. Geralt raised a hand toward them in a calming gesture. Go. Now. Report this to your commander. Tell them there's a new type of vampire in Velen, and everyone needs to stay clear. Everyone? Alucard interjected. Even the fun people? What about the murderers, the bandits, the rapists and pillagers? Can they come play? Because I'm really hoping someone here deserves what I'm about to do when I inevitably get bored. The Scoia'tael fled into the forest. Smart move. Geralt turned back to face the vampire, mind racing through options. He couldn't kill this thing. That much was obvious. Couldn't contain it. Couldn't negotiate from a position of strength. That left information gathering and damage control. The war, Geralt said slowly, is between the northern kingdoms and Nilfgaard. The empire from the south is conquering everything in its path. Velen is caught in the middle. Armies burning villages, refugees everywhere, monsters feeding on the corpses. Alucard's expression shifted, something almost thoughtful crossing his features. Conquest, imperialism, systematic destruction. He nodded slowly. Yeah, okay, I can work with that. So which side is the fun one? Who's got the bigger body count? Who's doing the most creatively fucked up shit? That's not how you choose sides, Geralt said flatly. It's how I choose everything. Alucard threw his arms wide. Look, Jerry, I'm an immortal vampire god with more firepower than your entire civilization and the personality of a gleeful psychopath. I don't do morality, I do entertainment. So tell me, in this war of yours, who's going to give me the best fight? Who's going to make me feel something other than soul-crushing ennui? Geralt's jaw clenched. This was worse than he'd thought. At least higher vampires had logic, self-preservation instincts. This thing operated on chaos and boredom. It was a natural disaster with opinions. If you're looking for a challenge, Geralt said carefully, choosing his words like he was navigating a minefield. There are things in this world that might interest you. The Wild Hunt, interdimensional raiders, ancient vampires even higher vampires fear, accursed beings that can't be killed by conventional means. Alucard's eyes lit up like a child on Christmas morning. Now you're speaking my language. He clapped his hands together. Interdimensional raiders, ancient unkillables. Jerry, you beautiful bastard. You just made my entire day, week, possibly century. He paused. Where do I find these Wild Hunt people? Can I fight them now? Are they here? I will literally kill everyone in this village if it means getting to the fun parts faster. They're not here, Geralt said quickly. They come and go. Hunt specific targets. But if you're serious about wanting a challenge, more serious than immortal cancer, Alucard confirmed, then I know someone who might help. A sorceress? She studies dimensional phenomena. If anyone can explain how you got here, it's her. Oh, maybe even find a way to send you back. The vampire considered this, tilting his head. The shadows around him receded slightly, the temperature returning to something approaching normal. A sorceress, magic user, reality bender. He nodded. Yeah, okay, I'll bite. Literally or figuratively, depending on how annoying she is. But Jerry, his tone became almost serious. I want you to understand something. I'm not a good guy. I'm not even an anti-hero. I'm a monster that sometimes points itself at other monsters. And if this sorceress tries to bind me, control me, or bore me, I will paint the walls with her internal organs while singing show tunes. We clear? Geralt met those glowing red eyes and saw truth there. Absolute terrifying truth. Crystal, he said, the ride to Oxenfurt took 3 days. 3 very long days during which Geralt discovered that traveling with an immortal vampire who never slept, never ate, and never shut up was its own unique form of torture. So, you're telling me, Alucard said from where he floated alongside Roach, literally floated, horizontal in midair like he was lounging on an invisible couch, that you hunt monsters for money, but the money is shit. People hate you anyway, and you're sterile because of the mutations. Jerry, my man, you need a better union. Have you considered filing a grievance? Maybe starting a strike? Witchers don't have unions, Geralt muttered, guiding Roach around a fallen tree. The war had left the roads in disrepair, and bandits made travel dangerous. Or they usually did. The 2 groups they'd encountered had taken one look at Alucard and fled screaming into the woods. Well, you should. Workers' rights, Jerry. Collective bargaining. You're out here getting trauma for copper coins while kings sit in castles doing king shit. It's exploitative. Alucard paused. Though, I guess technically I'm also exploiting people. But I make it fun. And sexy. Mostly sexy. The landscape of Velen rolled past, burned villages, corpse-filled ditches, crows circling overhead. War's aftermath painted in ash and blood. Geralt had seen it countless times, the casual brutality of humans making monsters look civilized by comparison. Beside him, Alucard observed it all with the detached interest of a tourist. "Your world's depressing," the vampire commented, and phasing through a low-hanging branch rather than ducking. "Like Victorian orphanage levels of depressing. Does the sun ever come out? Do people ever smile? Or is everyone just perpetually one bad day away from becoming a statistic?" "War does that," Geralt said. "Nilfgaard's been pushing north for years. Every time they advance, thousands die. Refugees flee, monsters feed on the corpses. It's a cycle." "Ooh, a cycle. I love cycles. They're like circles, but with more suffering." Alucard righted himself in midair, now sitting cross-legged and stroking an imaginary beard. "So this Nilfgaard, are they evil? Like cartoon villain evil? Or the we're just following orders evil? Because there's a distinction. One's fun to massacre, the other's just depressing." Geralt considered how to answer that. They're an empire. They conquer, and they assimilate, they impose order. Some would say they bring stability. Others would say they destroy cultures and enslave nations. So, yes, on the imperialism, maybe on the fun genocide. "Got it." Alucard produced his jackal pistol from nowhere, spinning it on his finger. "And these northern kingdoms, they're the good guys?" "They're desperate," Geralt corrected. "Fractured, fighting each other almost as much as they fight Nilfgaard. Kings more concerned with power than people. Some are honorable, most aren't. So everyone sucks, just in different flavors of suck. Perfect." Alucard holstered the pistol. "You know what this world needs, Jerry? A wild card. Someone completely outside your political bullshit who can just start flipping tables and shooting people until something interesting happens. And guess what? Santa came early this year." A fork in the road approached. The left path led through relatively open farmland. The right passed through a dense forest marked by a weathered sign. "Beware, Leshen territory." Geralt guided Roach left. Alucard floated right. "Ah, Jerry? Fun's this way." "That's Leshen territory," Geralt said. "Ancient forest spirits, violently territorial, control plants and animals, very dangerous." Alucard's eyes gleamed. "You had me at violently territorial. I'll meet you at the next town." And before Geralt could protest, the vampire shot into the forest like a red meteor, his manic laughter echoing through the trees. Geralt sighed, pulled Roach to a stop, and seriously considered just leaving. The sorceress could deal with Alucard herself. He'd done his part, pointed the chaos in a vaguely productive direction. But professional pride and morbid curiosity won out. He guided Roach onto the forest path. The forest was old growth, thick with moss and shadow. Geralt's medallion hummed steadily. Magic saturated this place, ancient and wild. Leshen territories were dangerous for good reason. The spirits could command wolves, summon roots to strangle intruders, and their very presence poisoned the air. Witchers approached these contracts with preparation and caution. Alucard had apparently approached by kicking down the door and announcing himself. "Hello, Udso," the vampire's voice echoed through the woods. "Is anyone home? I'm here to violate your sacred space and possibly shoot you. Please form an orderly line for the ass-kicking." Geralt urged Roach faster, following the sound of rustling trees and what might have been branches screaming. He emerged into a clearing just as the Leshen made its move. The creature was massive. 12 feet of twisted wood and animal skulls, crowned with antlers that scraped the canopy. Its eyeless face turned toward Alucard with ancient malevolence, and the forest responded to its rage. Roots erupted from the ground like serpents, wrapping around the vampire's legs, arms, torso. Wolves, 6 of them, possessed by the spirit's will, lunged from the undergrowth with supernatural coordination. Alucard looked down at the roots constricting around him, then at the wolves mid-leap, then back to the Leshen. "Oh, buddy," he said, grinning. "You just made the worst decision of your probably very long life." The roots tightened, thorns piercing through his coat and into flesh. Blood welled up, dark and viscous. The wolf's jaws closed on his arms, his throat, his torso, tearing, rending, shaking like they were trying to break his neck. Alucard started laughing. It wasn't his usual manic cackle. This was something deeper, darker, the laugh of something that had forgotten what pain felt like and was delighted to be reminded. The roots pulled tighter. The wolves bit harder, and Alucard's body simply came apart. His torso separated from his legs. His arms tore free. His head lolled backward as a wolf's jaws crushed his throat. Blood sprayed across the clearing in arterial fountains. The Leshen made a sound like grinding wood, satisfaction perhaps. The kill complete. Then the blood began moving. Every droplet, every splash, every crimson streak reversed direction like time was flowing backward. The separated pieces of Alucard's body dragged themselves together, a muscle knitting to muscle, bone fusing to bone. The wolves found their jaws stuck as flesh regenerated around their teeth. The roots shriveled and blackened as something in the vampire's blood poisoned them at the cellular level. Alucard reformed, his body whole and his grin wider than ever. "My turn," he roared, and the forest exploded with violence. He moved faster than Geralt's enhanced eyes could fully track, one moment standing still, the next behind a wolf, gripping its skull and twisting until bone cracked like thunder. The jackal came out, the report deafening in the enclosed space, and the 13mm explosive round took another wolf's head clean off. Shadows erupted from Alucard's body like living things, forming into hellhounds with too many teeth and eyes that burned with stolen life. The Leshen struck back, summoning murder after murder of crows that descended like a black storm. Alucard let them hit him, let them tear chunks from his face and hands, laughing all the while as he regenerated faster than they could damage him. His shadow hounds tore into the possessed wolves with savage efficiency, while Alucard himself stalked toward the Leshen. "You know what your problem is?" Alucard asked conversationally, phasing through a spear of sharpened wood that should have impaled him. "You think you're scary? You think controlling a forest and some puppies makes you a threat?" He was in front of the Leshen now, looking up at its towering form. "Let me show you what scary actually looks like." His form exploded outward, shadows and crimson light consuming the clearing. For a moment, the Geralt saw something vast behind the vampire, countless faces screaming in torment, an army of the damned pressed against reality like souls behind glass. The Leshen recoiled, and Geralt realized with shock that it was feeling something it probably hadn't felt in centuries. Fear. Alucard's hand punched through the Leshen's chest and out its back, gripping something that pulsed with sickly green light, the spirit's core. The creature thrashed, its control over the forest fragmenting. Trees shook, the remaining wolves collapsed, freed from possession. "You're old," Alucard said, his voice echoing with the screams of millions. "I respect that. But I'm older than your species' concept of old. I was killing when your forest was a fucking seed." He pulled. the Leshen's core came free with a sound like tearing reality, and the creature's form collapsed into rotting wood and scattered bones. The green light in Alucard's hand pulsed once, twice, then went dark. The forest fell silent. Alucard stood there, covered in blood, his own and otherwise, surrounded by corpses, his shadow hounds dissolving into mist. He looked at the dead core in his hand, shrugged, and ate it. "Tastes like moss and regret," he said. Then noticed Geralt watching from the tree line. "Oh hey, Jerry. You missed the foreplay, but the climax was amazing. This thing actually managed to tear me apart. I haven't been torn apart since Tuesday. Do you know how good that feels when you're immortal? It's like a massage, but with more dismemberment." Geralt stared at the carnage, at the destroyed Leshen that would have taken him hours of preparation and a hard fight to defeat. At the vampire who turned it into entertainment in under 2 minutes. "You're insane," Geralt said flatly. "Certifiably." Alucard agreed cheerfully, rejoining him on the path. "But you already knew that. Come on, let's go meet this sorceress. I'm in a great mood now, which means I probably won't kill her immediately." Probably. They continued through the forest. Behind them, the clearing remained silent, except for the crows that descended to feast. Nature would reclaim the Leshen's territory in time. But for now, it was just another corpse in a land full of them. As they rode, Geralt caught himself wondering, had he just made the biggest mistake of his life? He'd introduced an unkillable force of chaos to someone who might actually be able to use it. Keira Metz was brilliant, but ambitious. What would she do with a weapon like Alucard? What would anyone do? Oxenfurt stood as a monument to civilization in a world tearing itself apart. Its university spires rising above stone walls, libraries holding knowledge from across the continent, and enough magical wards to make even aggressive spells think twice about causing trouble. The city had survived wars, plagues, and political upheaval through a simple strategy: make yourself too valuable to destroy. Geralt and his floating companion crossed the bridge over the Pontar River as evening settled over the city. Guards at the gate took one look at the Witcher, glanced at the grinning man in red hovering 3 feet off the ground, looked at each other, and collectively decided that whatever was about to happen was above their pay grade. "I like this place already," Alucard announced, phasing through the gate rather than waiting for it to open. "It's got that educated people are about to make terrible decisions energy. Very Oxford, very Cambridge, very let's summon a demon for our thesis." The streets of Oxenfurt bustled with evening activity, students hurrying to lectures, merchants closing shops, taverns opening for the night crowd. People gave the Witcher the usual wary distance, but Alucard drew stares ranging from confused to horrified. A man floating through the air in archaic formal wear wasn't exactly subtle. "Jerry, everyone's looking at me," Alucard stage whispered. "Is it because I'm beautiful? It's because I'm beautiful, isn't it? I knew this coat was timeless." "It's because you're flying," Geralt muttered. "Oh, right. Shit." Alucard dropped to the ground, landing with theatrical grace. "Better? I'm more inconspicuous?" "No." "Perfect." They navigated through winding streets toward the more affluent district where sorceresses typically maintained residences. Geralt had worked with Keira Metz before, a member of the Lodge of Sorceresses, skilled in illusion magic and portal creation, and possessing the kind of ambitious cunning that made her simultaneously useful and dangerous. If anyone could analyze Alucard's dimensional displacement, it was her. Whether she should was another question entirely. The sorceress's home was a 3-story manor that radiated, "I have magic and I'm not afraid to use it" energy. Protective spells shimmered invisibly around the property. Geralt could sense them with his medallion, and he suspected Alucard could see them directly based on how the vampire was staring at the walls. "Ooh, a magical security system," Alucard said admiringly. "Cute. It's like a 'beware of dogs' sign, except the dog is probably a fireball or something equally dramatic." He walked up to the door and knocked with exaggerated politeness. "Hello, I'm here to potentially threaten you. Please open up so we can determine if violence is necessary." The door opened immediately, revealing a woman in her apparent 30s, dark hair, sharp features, wearing a dress that somehow managed to be both elegant and practical. Keira Metz stood in the doorway with a wine glass in one hand and an expression of profound irritation. "Geralt," she said without looking at him, her eyes locked on Alucard. "Why did you bring an apocalypse to my doorstep?" "You can sense what he is?" Geralt asked, somewhat relieved he wasn't the only one picking up on the wrongness. Sense it. Every mage within 50 miles is probably having panic attacks right now. This thing," she gestured at Alucard with her wine glass, "registers as a massive dimensional anomaly wrapped in undeath and seasoned with what I can only describe as weaponized insanity. So I'll ask again, why is it on my property?" "It has a name," Alucard interjected cheerfully. "And pronouns. I'm very progressive that way. Alucard, he/him, apex predator, enjoys long walks through battlefields and turning people inside out. Pleased to meet you." He extended a hand. Keira stared at the offered hand like it was a coiled viper. "I'm not touching you. Whatever dimensional filth you're carrying might be contagious." "Oh, I like her." Alucard withdrew his hand. "She's got that 'I'm too smart for this shit' energy. Very sexy. Very 'I could kill you, but paperwork is boring.'" Kira's eye twitched. She drained her wine glass in one long pull, set it on a nearby table, and stepped aside. "Get in, both of you, before the city guard decides this is their problem." The interior of Kira's home was exactly what Geralt expected. Books everywhere, magical artifacts on display behind protective glass, and enough ambient magical energy to make his medallion hum constantly. Alucard drifted through the space like a curious cat, examining everything with hands clasped behind his back. "Don't touch anything," Keira warned, already pouring herself another glass of wine from a bottle that had definitely been full 5 minutes ago. "Wouldn't dream of it," Alucard lied, immediately picking up a crystal sphere that pulsed with inner light. "What's this? Magical 8-ball? Mystical disco ball? Trapped soul screaming for release?" Kira's hand twitched toward her component pouch. "That's a scrying focus worth more than most houses. Put it down." "Make me," Alucard said with a grin. The temperature in the room dropped. Geralt recognized the buildup of magical energy. Keira was preparing a spell, probably something devastating. This was about to go very badly. "Keira," Geralt said quickly. "He fell through a dimensional rift 3 days ago. Near the old conjunction sites in Velen. He's from another world entirely, and he's looking for information about how he got here." The sorceress's concentration broke slightly. Another world? Not another sphere of the conjunction? Different multiverse, different rules, different vampire hierarchy. Alucard contributed, finally setting down the sphere. "I'm from a dimension where World War II happened, Nazis were a thing, and vampires have organizational structures. Also, guns exist and are awesome." He produced his jackal. "See? 13mm explosive rounds. Very therapeutic." Kira's eyes widened fractionally at the weapon. Not from fear, but fascination. Geralt recognized that look. It was the expression mages got when they encountered something that violated their understanding of reality and immediately wanted to study it. A weapon that harnesses, what? Alchemy? Dwarven engineering? She stepped closer despite herself. Gunpowder, metallurgy, and the sincere desire to make big holes in people. Alucard holstered the weapon. But enough about my hobbies. Jerry here says you're an expert in dimensional bullshit. I need to know what brought me here, whether I can go back, and most importantly, whether this world has anything that can kill me. For entertainment purposes. Keira turned to Geralt. This is the dimensional anomaly? The thing that's been making protective wards scream and magical sensors explode across the continent? That's him, Geralt confirmed. And you brought him to me? To my home? You're welcome, Alucard interjected. The sorceress pinched the bridge of her nose, muttered something about witchers and their complete lack of self-preservation instinct, then downed half her second glass of wine. When she looked up, her expression had shifted from irritation to calculating interest. All right, I'll help. But only because the alternative is having you wander around causing chaos until someone, probably me, has to clean up the mess. She moved to a bookshelf, pulling down several tomes. And dimensional rifts don't just open randomly. The conjunction of spheres was a cosmic accident that took centuries to stabilize. If another rift occurred, it means something catastrophic happened to the barriers between worlds. Like what? Geralt asked. Like someone with elder blood tearing holes in reality. Like the Wild Hunt forcing passages between spheres. Like... She paused, looking at Alucard with new suspicion. Like something so powerful entering our reality that it punched through dimensional walls like wet paper. That second one. Alucard raised his hand. The Wild Hunt thing. Jerry mentioned them. They sound fun. Are they fun? Please tell me they're fun. Keira's expression became very carefully neutral. The Wild Hunt are interdimensional predators, elven wraiths from another sphere who ride between worlds, stealing people for slavery or worse. They're considered one of the most dangerous forces on the continent. Alucard's grin threatened to split his face. Oh my God. Oh my God. Jerry, you beautiful bastard, you weren't kidding. This world has actual interdimensional raiders. That's amazing. Where do I find them? Can I fight them now? Will they put up a good fight before I tear them apart? They're not here, Keira said sharply. And you should pray they stay away. The Wild Hunt doesn't lose. They hunt across dimensions, and whatever they target, they take. Finally, Alucard breathed, his eyes glowing brighter. Something worth existing for. Geralt watched the exchange with growing concern. He'd hoped bringing Alucard to Keira would lead to answers, possibly a way home. Instead, he'd just given an immortal murder machine exactly what it wanted. A target worthy of its attention. Keira spread several books across her desk, comparing diagrams of spheres and dimensional barriers. If you entered through a rift, there should be residual energy. Markers we can trace. She looked up at Alucard. I'll need to examine you, magically. This will involve spells that could be uncomfortable. Lady, I've been staked, burned, blessed, cursed, exorcised, and had a holy nail driven through my heart. Your magic can't hurt me, but you're welcome to try. I could use the entertainment. He spread his arms wide. Scan away. Keira began casting, her hands weaving patterns that made the air shimmer. Diagnostic spells, Geralt recognized. Designed to analyze magical signatures and supernatural auras. The magic washed over Alucard like water over stone, and the vampire stood there grinning like a kid at a carnival. Then Keira gasped. Her eyes went wide, pupils dilating as the spell fed her information. Her hands started shaking. The wine glass on her desk shattered, its contents spreading across ancient parchment. "What?" Geralt demanded. "What do you see?" "Souls," Keira whispered, her voice hollow. "Millions of souls, layered over each other, compressed, screaming. It's like staring into a mass grave that's also alive." How are you?" "Absorbing them," Alucard explained helpfully. "Everyone I kill, I take their soul. Add it to the collection. Right now I'm sitting at about 3 million, give or take. Lost count after the first 100,000. They're all in here." He tapped his chest. "Me experiencing existence as part of me for eternity. It's very biblical, very Old Testament wrath of God energy." Keira stumbled backward, her spell collapsing. "You're not a vampire. You're a walking apocalypse, an extinction event in the shape of a man." "Por qué no los dos?" Alucard tilted his head. "But yeah, basically. So, can you figure out how I got here, or do I need to find someone smarter? No offense, but I'm on a tight schedule of random violence and property damage." The sorceress looked at Geralt, her expression communicating very clearly. "What the fuck have you done?" Geralt had no answer. He was wondering the same thing. Keira Metz had seen a lot in her decades as a sorceress. She'd witnessed the Lodge's political machinations, survived wars, studied forbidden magic that made lesser mages' minds break. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared her for the creature currently lounging on her expensive divan like it was a cheap tavern bench. "So," Alucard said, examining his fingernails with theatrical boredom, "how long is this analysis going to take? Because I'm already feeling the itch. You know the itch. The I haven't murdered anyone in hours and my trigger finger is getting lonely itch." Keira ignored him, focusing on the complex magical equations she was scrawling across parchment. The dimensional signature she'd pulled from Alucard was unlike anything in recorded history. The conjunction of spheres had specific markers, chaotic but identifiable. And this was something else entirely. Clean, surgical. Like reality had been cut open with a scalpel rather than shattered with a hammer. "The rift that brought you here," she said without looking up, "wasn't natural. Something opened it deliberately." That got Geralt's attention. "The Wild Hunt? No. Their portals have distinct markers, ice magic, elven signatures, temporal distortion. This is..." She trailed off, comparing symbols. "This is elder blood magic, but stronger than anything I've documented. As if someone with Siri's power opened a passage and you fell through." "Siri?" Alucard perked up. "Is that a person? Are they important? Can I fight them?" "She's a child," Geralt said sharply, "and missing. If she opened a portal, it wasn't intentional. Missing child with reality warping powers loose in a medieval hellscape?" Alucard sat up, grinning. "Jerry, your world is dark. I'm almost impressed. So this kid accidentally opens portals to other dimensions when she's scared or whatever. And that's how I ended up here?" Keira's quill paused. "Potentially. But there's another element." She turned to face them fully. "The Wild Hunt is hunting her. Has been for years. If they were close when she panicked and opened a rift. If their portal magic intersected with hers." She gestured at Alucard. "You might have been caught in the overlap. 2 dimensional breaches colliding, and you were pulled through the gap. Like getting caught in crossfire, except the bullets are reality tears. I love it." Alucard stood, stretching. "So, where's this Wild Hunt? I've got questions. Mainly, can you bleed, and how funny will you look missing body parts?" They're not here, Keira said. They come and go, hunt across spheres. Even if you could find them. Oh, I'll find them, Alucard interrupted, his tone shifting to something darker. See, here's the thing about being an immortal vampire god. You get very, very good at hunting. And I've got eternity. They can run across dimensions, hide in whatever sphere they want, but eventually, his grin widened. Eventually I'll be there. And then we'll see if interdimensional elven wraiths can scream. Geralt exchanged a look with Keira. The sorceress's expression conveyed the same thought he was having. They'd just given the most dangerous thing on the continent a target. Whether that was good or catastrophically bad remained to be seen. Obvious, there's a problem, Keira said carefully. The wild hunt doesn't exist in one place. They're tied to their own sphere, and they project themselves here. Killing their physical manifestations won't destroy them. They'll just retreat and return later. So I need to follow them home, Alucard said simply. Great. How do I do that? You don't. The barriers between spheres are irrelevant to someone who doesn't give a fuck about dimensional physics? Alucard's eyes glowed brighter. Lady, I've been to hell. Literal hell. I've walked through dimensions that would make your brain leak out your ears. If there's a door, I'll kick it down. If there's no door, I'll make one out of corpses and spite. A knock at the door interrupted the conversation. Aggressive, authoritative. Keira's eyes narrowed. No, I'm not expecting anyone. Geralt's hand drifted to his sword hilt. His medallion was vibrating, magic approaching. Multiple sources. Sorceress Metz, a voice called from outside. Open in the name of the Lodge. We have urgent business. Keira's expression went from irritated to alarmed. That's Sabrina Glevissig, another Lodge member. Shit. She looked at Alucard. Hide. Now. If the Lodge realizes what you are, they'll what? Try to study me, bind me, use me as a weapon? Alucard's grin became predatory. Lady, I haven't had this much foreplay in decades. Let them in. Let's see what happens when middle management meets upper management. This isn't a joke, Keira hissed. The Lodge of Sorceresses controls most magical and political power on the continent, and if they decide you're a threat, then they can get in line behind everyone else who's tried to kill me this century. Alucard floated toward the door. Come on, Jerry, time to meet the neighbors. Before anyone could stop him, he opened the door. 4 sorceresses stood in the entrance, magical energy crackling around them like heat shimmer. Sabrina Glevissig led them, raven-haired and imperious, wearing a dress that cost more than most villages. Behind her stood 3 others Geralt recognized. Sheala de Tancarville, Asir var Anahid, and Margarita Lo Antil. The Lodge's heavy hitters, all wearing expressions that suggested this wasn't a social call. Keira, Sabrina said, her voice dripping with false politeness. We detected a massive dimensional anomaly centered on your residence. We're here to... She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes locking onto Alucard. What in the name of chaos is that? That is incredibly rude, Alucard said cheerfully. I have a name. It's Alucard, and I'm a vampire. Well, the vampire, the original, the template all others are measured against and found wanting. He looked over the assembled sorceresses like a wolf evaluating sheep. And you must be the local magical mafia? I've heard so much about you. Well, not really, but I'm assuming you're important based on the expensive clothes and overwhelming sense of self-importance. Sheala raised her hand, magic coalescing around her fingers. Vampire? That's impossible. No vampire radiates this much power. No higher vampire could... Higher vampire? Alucard laughed. Oh, honey, I'm not a higher vampire. I'm what higher vampires have nightmares about. I'm the shit their mothers warned them about. He paused dramatically. Completely out of their league. Like different sport entirely. They're playing checkers, I'm playing thermonuclear chess. Asir, the Nilfgaardian sorceress, stepped forward. Her analytical mind was clearly working overtime. A dimensional traveler? You came through a rift, didn't you? From another sphere? Different multiverse, actually. Alucard corrected. Your conjunction of spheres is cute and all, but where I'm from, we've got proper dimensional bullshit. Hellgates, dimensional rifts, reality warping vampire Nazis, it's a whole thing. Vampire Nazis? Margarita repeated, her skepticism evident. Long story. Involves a lot of genocide. Most of it justified, some of it questionable, all of it entertaining. Alucard's grin widened. But we're getting off topic. You ladies came here for a reason. Something about a dimensional anomaly? Was it me? It was me, wasn't it? I'm the anomaly. Sabrina's expression had gone from suspicious to calculating. Geralt recognized that look. The Lodge was already thinking about how to use this. If you're as powerful as you claim, then you represent either an asset or a threat to the continent's stability. The Lodge will need to assess my ass, Alucard interrupted. Lady, I've dealt with secret organizations before. They're all the same. Lots of talk about the greater good, lots of schemes, and eventually they try to put a leash on me. Spoiler alert, it never works. And the people who try end up decorating walls in creative ways. Magic flared as all 4 visiting sorceresses prepared defensive spells. The air crackled with elemental energy. Fire, ice, lightning, and raw chaos waiting to be unleashed. Keira's protective wards activated automatically, recognizing the threat level. Geralt stepped between them and Alucard. Everyone calm down. He's not hostile, just enthusiastically violent. That's the nicest thing anyone said about me all week. Alucard beamed. He fell through a dimensional rift, Keira explained quickly, trying to defuse the situation. Likely caused by intersection of elder blood magic and wild hunt portals. I've been analyzing the signature. He's from another reality entirely, not another sphere. Then he needs to be contained until we understand the threat, Sabrina declared. Lodge protocol is clear. Your protocol can suck my ancient vampire dick, Alucard said pleasantly. I'm not a threat. I'm a promise. I promise to be violent. I promise to be chaotic. I promise that anyone who tries to contain me will discover new and interesting things about their internal anatomy. But I'm not your threat. Not yet, anyway. Shiala's fingers twitched, spell matrices forming. You can't just... The temperature dropped to freezing in an instant. Frost spread across the floor, up the walls, across the windows. Alucard's form flickered, shadows pouring off him like smoke. His eyes burned crimson hellfire, and for just a moment, the sorceresses saw what Keira had seen, the millions of screaming souls writhing behind his existence, an army of the damned compressed into one grinning monster. I can do whatever I want, Alucard said, his voice echoing with the choir of the dead. Because you can't stop me, you can't bind me, you can't kill me. Your magic is impressive by local standards, but I've been cursed by God himself. I've drunk the blood of over 3 million people. I've died more times than you've cast spells. So here's what's going to happen. The shadows receded, the temperature returned to normal, and his grin came back. You're going to leave? You're going to report to your little club that there's a new player in town. And you're going to hope, pray, that I stay entertained enough not to start testing whether sorceresses bleed the same color as everyone else. The silence was absolute. Then a seer spoke, her voice carefully controlled. "You mentioned the wild hunt. You're hunting them?" "Soon as I figure out where they live, yeah." Alucard's demeanor shifted back to cheerful. "Why? You got a problem with interdimensional raiders? Because I'd love to help, and for entertainment purposes." The sorceresses exchanged glances. Silent communication only the Lodge could manage. Finally, Sabrina spoke, her tone suggesting she was making a decision she'd regret. "The Wild Hunt is hunting a girl with elder blood, Cirilla of Cintra. If you want to find them, find her. They'll come." "Using a child as bait," Alucard said thoughtfully. "Dark, pragmatic, absolutely fucked up. I approve. Where is she?" "No one knows," Margarita admitted. "She's been moving between spheres, hunted, terrified. But she always returns to the continent eventually." "Then I'll wait," Alucard said simply. "I'm very good at waiting. Had a lot of practice being immortal and all." He looked at Geralt. "Jerry, looks like we've got a new plan. Find the kid, wait for the interdimensional death squad, and then see if they're as fun to kill as advertised." Geralt wanted to protest. Wanted to say that Siri wasn't bait, that using her to draw the wild hunt was monstrous. But looking at the Lodge sorceresses' faces, he realized they'd already had this conversation. They'd already decided that sacrificing one girl was acceptable if it stopped the wild hunt permanently. Alucard, apparently, agreed. "We'll be monitoring the situation," Sabrina said, already backing toward the door. "If you become a threat to the continent, you'll send more sorceresses to threaten me, and I'll laugh harder. Got it?" Alucard waved cheerfully. "It was lovely meeting you. Let's do this again sometime, preferably with more violence." The 4 sorceresses departed, their protective spells staying active until they were well clear of the house. Keira closed the door and leaned against it and looked at Geralt with an expression of pure exhaustion. "I need stronger wine," she muttered. "I need answers," Geralt said. "The Lodge is using Siri as bait now?" "They've been planning it for months," Keira admitted. "She's too dangerous to control, too valuable to ignore. If the wild hunt takes her, they gain unimaginable power. If someone else finds her first..." She looked at Alucard. "Now you're in the mix, and honestly, I don't know if that makes things better or infinitely worse." Alucard sprawled back on the divan. "Better, definitely better. I make everything better. Well, better for me, worse for everyone else. But that's the fun part. The unseen elder had existed for over 1,500 years in the deepest caverns beneath Toussaint, far from the concerns of surface dwellers. He was the oldest and most powerful higher vampire on the continent, a creature of such ancient malevolence that even other vampires spoke his name in whispers. He had witnessed empires rise and fall, watched humans multiply like insects, and maintained his isolation through simple principle. Stay hidden, and the cattle will never organize enough to threaten you. Then something wrong entered his world. He felt it 3 days after Alucard's arrival. A disturbance in the blood, a wrongness that sang through the supernatural connections all vampires shared. Something that wore the shape of vampire, but was fundamentally other. An abomination, a perversion of what it meant to be higher. The unseen elder did not tolerate perversions. He rose from his meditation, his ancient form unfolding in the darkness. Time to investigate. Time to eliminate. And if this creature proved resistant to conventional methods, well, the elder had not survived 15 centuries by being squeamish about necessary violence. He moved through stone like smoke, traveling through the earth itself, following the blood song to its source, north. The trail led north to Oxenfurt, to a sorceress's dwelling that reeked of dimensional magic and something else. Something that smelled like apocalypse. Alucard was in the middle of explaining the finer points of Nazi vampire hierarchies when every window in Keira's home exploded inward simultaneously. No warning, no build-up, on just instant destruction as something fast and impossibly old tore through her defensive wards like they were paper. Geralt's sword was out in a heartbeat, Keira's hands blazing with protective magic. And Alucard? Alucard grinned so wide his face should have split. "Finally!" he shouted as a figure materialized in the center of the room. The unseen elder stood 7 feet tall, cadaverously thin, with skin like ancient leather stretched over a skeletal frame. His eyes were black pits that had witnessed the death of kingdoms. His fingers ended in claws that could tear through steel. Power radiated from him like heat from a forge. Centuries of accumulated strength, of feeding, of survival. "You," the elder spoke, his voice like grinding stone, each word deliberate and heavy with age. "You are wrong. You corrupt what we are. You must be destroyed." "Oh my God," Alucard breathed, his eyes practically glowing with joy. "You're the local big bad, aren't you? The ancient vampire everyone's scared of? The one who makes the tough guys piss themselves?" He clasped his hands together. "I'm so happy right now I could cry. Do you know how long it's been since another vampire tried to kill me? Decades. This is Christmas." The unseen elder didn't banter, didn't posture. He simply moved. One moment he was across the room. The next he was in front of Alucard, claws extended, moving faster than Geralt could track. The blow that followed would have decapitated a lesser vampire, carved through armor, obliterated bone. It passed through Alucard's neck like he was made of shadow. The elder's eyes widened fractionally. The first emotion Geralt had ever seen on the ancient creature's face. Surprise. "My turn." Alucard's fist came up, catching the elder in the chest with enough force to send him crashing through the far wall, through the wall behind that, and into the street beyond. Masonry exploded. People screamed. And Alucard walked through the hole he'd made, dusting off his hands. "Keira," he called back. "I'm borrowing your front yard. Jerry, you might want to evacuate the neighborhood. This is going to get messy." The unseen elder rose from the rubble. His chest caved in, ribs visible through torn flesh. As Geralt watched, the damage regenerated. Flesh knitting, bone straightening, the wound closing in seconds. Higher vampire regeneration, the trait that made them nearly unkillable. You are strong," the elder acknowledged. "But I have devoured armies. I have survived the conjunction itself. You cannot." Alucard shot him. The jackal's report echoed through Oxenfurt streets like thunder. The 13mm explosive round took the elder's left arm off at the shoulder, the limb spinning away in a spray of ancient blood. The vampire staggered, and Alucard was on him, moving with the same impossible speed, his form blurring. "Can't what?" Alucard asked, appearing behind the elder, his casul pressed against the vampire's spine. "Can't kill you? Oh, buddy, I'm not trying to kill you yet. I'm playing. This is foreplay." He fired. The blessed rounds punched through the elder's torso, out his chest, and into the street beyond. The ancient vampire lurched forward, his remaining arm lashing out, claws raking across Alucard's face hard enough to tear flesh from bone. Alucard's head snapped back, skin flapping, one eye hanging loose. And he laughed. "Yes, that's it. Hurt me more." The elder's regeneration was impressive. His arm was already growing back, flesh sprouting from the stump like grotesque flowers. But Alucard's healing was faster. His face was already whole, the damage reversed in the time it took to blink. The two vampires circled each other in the ruined street, both grinning now, one with ancient malice, the other with manic glee. "You heal quickly," the elder observed. "But healing means nothing if I tear you apart faster than you can regenerate." "Finally, someone who gets it." Alucard's form exploded with shadows, his coat billowing like wings. "Let's test that theory." They collided in the center of the street, and when the violence that followed made the watching crowd flee in terror. The unseen elder fought with 1,500 years of experience. Precise strikes aimed at vital points, leveraging supernatural strength and speed refined through centuries of predation. He was a scalpel, a professional killer who wasted no movement. Alucard fought like a drunken god, having the time of his unlife. He let the elder tear him apart, laughing as claws ripped through his torso, his throat, his limbs. He regenerated through the damage, reforming from shadows and blood mist, shooting the elder at point-blank range while being actively dismembered. It wasn't a fight. It was mutual destruction elevated to art form. A claw took Alucard's head off. The body kept fighting, shooting blindly while the head regenerated on the ground, sprouting a new body from the neck stump. Both Alucards attacked simultaneously, and the elder found himself flanked by the same opponent twice. "What are you?" the ancient vampire roared, the first time in centuries he'd shown genuine emotion. "I'm what happens when you take the original vampire," both Alucard said in stereo. "Strip away mortality, add 3 million souls, and remove all safety regulations. I'm what you wish you could be." The Alucards merged back into one, his form solidifying as shadows coalesced. The elder stood opposite him, body covered in bullet wounds, regenerating steadily but visibly taxed. 1,500 years old, and he was breathing hard. Alucard wasn't even winded. "You're good," Alucard admitted, holstering his guns. "Like, legitimately good. Fast, strong, experienced. In any other scenario, you'd be the scariest thing in the room." He took off his sunglasses, revealing eyes that burned with inhuman intensity. "But I've fought literal armies. I've died and come back so many times that death is basically a hobby. And I've got something you don't have." "What?" the elder demanded. "Restrictions." Alucard's grin widened impossibly. "See, I'm too powerful, too dangerous. So my master puts seals on me, levels of restraint that limit what I can do. Right now, I'm at level 1. Basic supernatural shit, regeneration, standard vampire stuff." He raised a hand, and the air around it began to distort. "But I can release those seals. Level 0 removes all restrictions. Every soul I've absorbed, every power I've stolen, everything I am, unleashed." The elder's expression shifted from aggression to something approaching concern. "You would annihilate this entire city." "Yep," Alucard agreed cheerfully. "Probably several cities, maybe a small country. It's very dramatic. But here's the thing, I don't want to do that. Not yet, anyway. I'm having too much fun." He pointed at the elder. "So here's my offer. You back off, I back off, and we both walk away with the knowledge that there's another apex predator in town. His tone darkened. "You keep trying to kill me. I release level 0, and we find out whether 1,500 years of experience means jack shit against literal apocalypse." The unseen elder stood motionless, calculating. He was ancient, powerful, terrifying. He'd faced down armies, killed legendary witchers, survived the conjunction of spheres. But he wasn't stupid. This thing before him wasn't just powerful. It was limitless, a being that treated dismemberment as entertainment. For the first time in 15 centuries, the unseen elder made a tactical retreat. "You are not higher vampire," he said slowly. "You are something else, an aberration. But you are correct. Destroying this city serves no purpose." His black eyes narrowed. "But know this. If you threaten vampire kind, if you expose us or endanger our existence, I will return. And next time, I will bring others." "Can't wait." Alucard waved cheerfully. "It's a date. Bring friends. Make it a party. I'll bring snacks." He paused. "The snacks are bullets. I'm going to bring bullets." The elder's form dissolved into mist, flowing through the broken buildings and away into the night. The street fell silent except for the crackling of magical fires and the distant sound of city guards finally working up the courage to investigate. Geralt emerged from Keira's ruined home, sword still drawn, looking at the devastation with weary resignation. An entire block was destroyed. Buildings collapsed. The street cratered and scorched. And in the center of it all, Alucard stood adjusting his coat like he'd just finished a pleasant evening stroll. "That was amazing!" the vampire exclaimed, practically vibrating with excitement. "Did you see that? He tore my head off, my actual head. And I made 2 of me. I've never done that before. I didn't even know I could do that." He spun to face Geralt. "Jerry, your world is fantastic. Where have you been hiding these guys? Are there more? Please tell me there are more ancient vampires I can fight." "There are maybe 5 higher vampires that old on the entire continent," Geralt said flatly. "And you just fought the strongest one." "Ah." Alucard's disappointment was palpable. "That's it? Just 5? That's barely a week's worth of entertainment." Keira appeared behind Geralt, surveying the ruins of her home with an expression of carefully controlled fury. "My house, my research, my windows, all destroyed because you 2 couldn't take your dick measuring contest somewhere else." "In fairness," Alucard pointed out, "he started it. I was just explaining Nazi vampire politics when Grandpa Gothic broke your windows, which, by the way, were not properly reinforced. You really should invest in better wards." "Get out," Keira said with remarkable calm. "Both of you. Us, get out of my city. Get out of Oxenfurt. And take your insane vampire bullshit somewhere far away before I forget I'm supposed to be civilized and fireball you both into the Pontar." "Can't fireball me, I'd just regenerate," Alucard said helpfully. "But I appreciate the threat. Very passionate. I respect that in a magic user." He looked at Geralt. "Jerry, I think we should go. The lady seems stressed." "Wonder why," Geralt muttered, already walking toward where he'd left Roach, assuming the horse hadn't fled during the supernatural demolition derby. As they left, city guards finally arrived, looking at the destruction with a kind of bewildered horror that came from realizing your training did not prepare you for this. Behind them, Keira began the long process of explaining to the university why a vampire god had torn through the intellectual district. Alucard walked beside Geralt, practically skipping. "Best day ever. We met evil magic sorceresses. I fought an ancient vampire and nobody even tried to bore me. Your world is growing on me, Jerry." "That's what I'm afraid of," Geralt said. The Wild Hunt had been hunting across dimensions for millennia. Eredin Break Glass, their commander, had led countless raids, stolen thousands of souls, and carved his name into the nightmares of 100 worlds. He did not fear. Fear was for prey, and the Wild Hunt were apex predators. Then his scouts reported something impossible. A dimensional anomaly, Caranthir, his navigator and mage, explained as they gathered in the throne room of their frostbound fortress. Not elder blood, something else, something that shouldn't exist. Aridan examined the magical projection, a swirling mass of red and shadow centered on the continent. Another sphere bleeding through? No, Caranthir's expression was troubled, which was concerning. The mage rarely showed emotion. It's a single entity, powerful enough to register across dimensional barriers. And it's been... He paused. It's been killing. A lot. So, Imlerith, their general, scoffed. The continent is always killing. That's what makes it entertaining. This is different. Caranthir manipulated the projection, showing a trail of destruction across Velen and Oxenfurt. A Leshen destroyed in minutes. The unseen elder, one of the oldest higher vampires, driven off after a battle that leveled city blocks. This thing is operating at a power level we haven't encountered outside of Siri. Eredin's interest sharpened. You think it's connected to the girl? I think it arrived through one of her rifts. When we chased her through that portal near Velen, she panicked, tore open reality. This thing might have been caught in the wake. Caranthir closed the projection. Commander, if this entity is hostile to us, then we eliminate it, Aridan said simply. We are the Wild Hunt. We bow to nothing. He stood, his armor creaking with cold. Prepare a raid. 3 riders. We'll assess this anomaly personally. If it proves useful, we take it. If it proves hostile, we destroy it. And if we can't? Caranthir asked quietly. Eredin's smile was cold as his armor. Then we'll be the first to fail. Somehow, I doubt that will happen. The hunt rode between dimensions, ice and spectral energy crackling in their wake. They were death on skeletal horses, wraiths wrapped in elven armor, ancient warriors who'd forgotten what it meant to lose. They were about to remember. Geralt and Alucard had made camp in the forest outside Oxenfurt, where partly because Keira had banned them from civilized areas and partly because Geralt needed time to think. The vampire sat on a fallen log, cleaning his guns with methodical precision while humming what sounded like a pop song from a dimension that didn't exist here. So, Alucard said conversationally, when do the interdimensional death elves show up? Because I've been good for almost 6 hours, and I'm starting to get twitchy. They don't just appear on command, Geralt said, tending to the campfire. The Wild Hunt comes when they want. Hunts who they choose. There's no schedule. That's disappointing. I hate waiting. Alucard holstered his castle. Back home, if I wanted to fight someone, I just went to where they were and started shooting. Very efficient. Yet your world's all about mysterious timing and prophecy bullshit. Destiny is real here, Geralt said. Prophecy matters, whether we like it or not. Sounds exhausting. Alucard looked up at the night sky, stars visible through the canopy. You know what I miss? Not having a destiny. Just existing. Killing things. Serving Integra because I respected her balls, metaphorically speaking. It was simple. Nothing about you is simple, Geralt observed. Fair point. The temperature dropped, not gradually, not with the slow creep of evening cold. It plummeted instantly, frost forming on trees, grass crystallizing, breath visible in the air. Geralt's medallion began vibrating violently, and Alucard's grin returned in full force. Oh yes, the vampire breathed. Oh yes, they're here. 3 riders emerged from nothing, tearing through reality itself. Their horses were skeletal nightmares wrapped in spectral energy, hooves never touching the ground. The riders wore ancient elven armor that dripped with ice, their faces hidden behind helms that promised only death. They moved through the forest like wraiths, temperature plummeting further in their wake. Eredin sat at the front, red eyes glowing behind his helm. Caranthir flanked him to the left, magical energy crackling around his fingers. Imlerith took the right, massive sword drawn and ready. The anomaly. Eredin's voice was cold as his armor, echoing with dimensional resonance. You will come with us. Resist, and we will take you by force." Alucard stood slowly, his entire body language shifting from relaxed to predatory. "Oh my God. Oh my God. You're them. You're the Wild Hunt. The interdimensional raiders. The unkillable death squad." He started laughing, the sound building from a chuckle to full manic hilarity. "This is it. This is what I've been waiting for. Jerry, look at them. They're perfect." "Anomaly," Keira said, his analytical mind processing the vampire's energy signature. "Your dimensional composition is unstable. You don't belong in this sphere. We will return you to hell with that," Alucard interrupted. "You boys came to the wrong dimension. See, I've been bored. Monumentally, catastrophically bored. And then you show up, all dramatic with your ice horses and your spooky armor, talking about taking me by force?" He drew both pistols. "I haven't been this hard since I fought an aircraft carrier," Imlerith charged. The Wild Hunt general moved with supernatural speed, his sword raised to cleave the vampire in two. The blade came down with enough force to split boulders. Alucard caught it between his palms, the impact crater beneath his feet, shockwave blasting outward, trees bending from the force. But the sword stopped, held by two hands that shouldn't have been able to stop it. Alucard's grin widened as he looked up at the shocked general. "My turn." He twisted, snapping the blade, then shot Imlerith in the face at point-blank range. The Jackal's explosive round took the general's helm off, along with most of his head. The Wild Hunt rider's body fell backward off his spectral mount, crashing to the ground. Dead, except not dead. Even as Geralt watched, Imlerith's form began dissolving, not dying, but retreating, pulling back to whatever dimension the Wild Hunt called home. "That's it," Alucard shouted. "That's your big threat? You retreat when you get hurt?" Eredin's eyes narrowed. "You can kill our projections. Impressive. But we are not truly here." He raised a hand, and ice formed in the air. Not normal ice, dimensional ice that existed in multiple spheres simultaneously. "You cannot follow us home. You cannot truly destroy us. Challenge accepted." Alucard's form exploded with shadows, his restraints loosening. "Keira, was it? You're the navigator, right? The one who opens portals?" He appeared behind the mage faster than even Aridan could track. "Let's see those dimensional coordinates." His hand punched through Keira's chest from behind, gripping something that pulsed with magical energy. The mage convulsed, spells firing wildly as Alucard literally reached into his essence and pulled. What are you?" Keira gasped. "Stealing your knowledge," Alucard said cheerfully. "It's a vampire thing. I take your blood, I take your memories, I take your skills." He pulled harder, and Keira screamed as something fundamental was ripped from him. "Ooh, dimensional navigation, portal magic, sphere coordinates. This is better than cable." Eredin moved, his own blade swinging for Alucard's neck. The vampire released Keira, letting the mage collapse, and caught Eredin's sword with one hand while still holding stolen magical knowledge in the other. "You made a mistake coming here," Alucard said, his voice dropping to something ancient and terrible. "You wanted to assess the anomaly? Here's your assessment. I'm a predator from a dimension where vampires are weapons of mass destruction. I've absorbed millions of souls. I've died thousands of times. And now?" His eyes blazed crimson. "I've got your navigator's knowledge, which means I know where you live." Eredin's eyes widened fractionally. Fear. The first time in millennia he'd felt it. "Retreat," he commanded, and the Wild Hunt began pulling back, their forms dissolving. "No, you don't." Alucard released Eredin's sword and lunged for the commander, grabbing his arm before he could fully phase out. "You're taking me with you." Shadows wrapped around both of them as dimensional magic activated. Geralt shouted something, but it was too late. The portal collapsed with both Aridan and Alucard halfway through, dimensional energy crackling wildly. There was a moment of absolute silence. Then Alucard fell back into the clearing, missing his left arm from the elbow down, grinning like a madman. "Almost had him. Fuck, dimensional travel is weird." His arm regenerated in seconds, flesh sprouting from the stump. He looked at where Caranthir still lay convulsing, the mage's projection failing as he retreated home. "But I got what I needed. Navigator knowledge, portal coordinates, dimensional math." He tapped his head. "It's all up here now, baby. Which means..." He turned to Geralt with manic glee. "I can find them. I can follow them home, and then we'll see if the Wild Hunt can scream." Geralt stared at the vampire, at the destroyed forest, at the lingering dimensional energy, and realized with absolute certainty that he'd made the worst mistake of his very long life. He hadn't just introduced chaos to the continent. He'd given it a roadmap to every dimension in existence. "What have I done?" he whispered. "Enabled me." Alucard answered cheerfully. "No, come on, Jerry. We've got interdimensional raiders to hunt. This is going to be amazing." The Lodge of Sorceresses convened an emergency session within hours of the Wild Hunt encounter. Philippa Eilhart, de facto leader despite being magically blinded, sat at the head of their council chamber while her owl familiar provided vision. Around the table sat the most powerful magic users on the continent, and every single one of them looked concerned. "Explain," Philippa commanded, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Keira stood, projecting magical images into the air. Alucard's fight with the unseen elder, the Wild Hunt's appearance, and most disturbingly, the vampire absorbing Caranthir's dimensional knowledge. The anomaly we detected isn't just powerful, it's adaptive. It learns. And now it has access to Wild Hunt portal magic. "That's impossible," Sabrina said flatly. "Us, dimensional navigation takes decades to master. The mathematics alone." "He didn't learn it," Keira interrupted. "He stole it, drank Caranthir's blood, and absorbed his knowledge directly. It's vampiric parasitism elevated to a metaphysical level." Yennefer of Vengerberg, who'd teleported in from Skellige specifically for this meeting, leaned forward. "So this thing, this Alucard, can now track the Wild Hunt to their home dimension?" "Potentially," Keira confirmed, though attempting dimensional travel without proper preparation would be suicidal. "He doesn't care about suicide," Geralt said from where he stood against the wall. The Lodge had summoned him as well, treating him more like a hostile witness than an ally. "He's died thousands of times. Death is entertainment to him." Philippa's blind gaze somehow found him anyway. "When you brought this creature to our world, Witcher, you enabled his violence. You gave him purpose." "I gave him a target," Geralt corrected. "The Wild Hunt. Something everyone here wants dead. Or am I wrong?" The silence confirmed he wasn't. "The enemy of my enemy is still a monster," Philippa said coldly. "Especially when that monster has no allegiances, no morality, and unlimited destructive capacity. We need to discuss containment." "You can't contain him," Geralt said flatly. "The Unseen Elder tried. He's older than your kingdoms, stronger than anything you've documented, and he retreated. The Wild Hunt tried to take Alucard by force. He nearly dragged their commander back through the portal. Nothing you have can hold him." "Then we find leverage," Asir suggested. "Everyone has pressure points. Desires. This vampire wants entertainment, yes? We provide it, direct it, control it through satisfaction rather than force. You want to feed him targets, Yennefer said, understanding immediately. Point him at our enemies like a weapon. Exactly. Asira's analytical mind was already calculating. Nilfgaard has enemies. The northern kingdoms have enemies. We all have problems that conventional forces can't solve. If this creature wants violence, we give him violence. On our terms. He's not a dog you can train, Geralt warned. He's chaos given form. Any control you think you have is an illusion he's allowing you to believe. Then we work within that illusion, Philippa decided. Summon him, officially. Lodge business. We'll present him with an offer he'll find entertaining. Alucard received the Lodge's summons 3 hours later via magical courier. A glowing orb that appeared in front of him while he was in the middle of practicing dimensional portal formulas stolen from Caranthir's mind. Ooh, fan mail, he said, popping the orb like a bubble. The message projected into his mind. Formal request to appear before the Lodge of Sorceresses. Urgent business. Potential mutual benefit. Jerry, he called out. Geralt was attempting to rest under a tree, though rest was difficult when traveling with an insomniac vampire. Your magical government wants to have a meeting. Think they're going to try the whole use the monster against our enemies thing? Probably. Geralt admitted, giving up on sleep. The Lodge specializes in manipulation. Maybe they'll try to point you at their problems. Excellent. Alucard stretched, joints popping. I could use some guided tours of who deserves killing. Your world's politics are complicated, and I'd hate to accidentally massacre the wrong army. So inefficient. They traveled to the Lodge's current meeting location. A pocket dimension accessible only through specific portals, ensuring privacy and security. The chamber was all dramatic architecture and magical lighting, designed to intimidate and impress. Alucard appeared in a swirl of shadows, took one look around, and started laughing. Oh my God, it's like a supervillain lair. Did you ladies hire an interior designer, or is ominous and pretentious just the default setting for magic users? He floated up to examine the vaulted ceiling. Very dark council of evil sorceresses. I approve. 10 out of 10 for aesthetic. Are you finished? Philippa asked icily. Never. Alucard descended, landing with a theatrical bow. But I'll pause for your pitch. You want to use me as a weapon. Point me at your enemies. Let me do what I do best while you pretend to have control. Am I close? The sorceresses exchanged glances. Yennefer spoke first, her violet eyes assessing him coldly. Close enough. We have enemies. You want entertainment. There's potential for mutual benefit. I'm listening, Alucard said, sprawling across the air like it was furniture. Who are we killing? Please tell me it's someone important. I'm tired of bandits and random monsters. I want targets with names and political significance. Sabrina conjured a map of the continent, magical markers indicating various locations. Nilfgaard is conquering the north, and their armies are led by competent generals, but several are particularly brutal. Mass executions, scorched earth tactics, war crimes even by medieval standards. War crimes? Alucard perked up. Now you're speaking my language. Continue. The Ard Feainn Righ, Nilfgaard's elite guard, are stationed in occupied Cintra, a seer contributed. She was Nilfgaardian herself, but the Lodge transcended national loyalties. They've been systematically eliminating resistance fighters. Entire villages burned for suspected collaboration. Cintra, Geralt said quietly. Siri's homeland. Exactly, Philippa confirmed. The girl the Wild Hunt hunts is also a princess of Cintra. If she returns there, and she will eventually, she'll find her kingdom occupied and her people enslaved. And the emotional trauma could trigger more uncontrolled portal openings. Alucard's eyes gleamed. So you want me to clear out the occupation force? Trauma the traumatizers. Make Cintra available for the girl's inevitable dramatic return. He considered this. I like it. It's got narrative symmetry. But here's my question. What's in it for me besides the obvious joy of mass murder? Information, Keira said, stepping forward. I've been studying dimensional mechanics since you arrived. If you help us, I'll help you refine your stolen portal knowledge. Make sure you can actually reach the Wild Hunt's dimension without shredding yourself across infinite spheres. That got his attention. You can do that? I'm one of 3 mages on the continent who've successfully analyzed Elder Blood portal signatures, Keira said with professional pride. You've got raw knowledge from Caranthir, but you don't know how to apply it safely. I can bridge that gap. Alucard was quiet for a moment, a rarity that made everyone nervous. Then he grinned. Deal. I kill your Nilfgaardians. You help me kill interdimensional elves. Everybody wins. Well, except the people I'm killing. They lose pretty hard. There are rules, Philippa said sharply. Civilians are off limits. You target military only. Command structure, elite forces, occupation troops, not the general population. Ah, you're taking away my creative freedom? Alucard pouted. Fine. Military targets only. I can work with that. When do I start? Tonight, Asir said. The Ard Feainn Righ's command post is in Cintra's palace. They've fortified it heavily. Conventional assault would cost thousands of lives. But I'm not conventional. Alucard stood or floated. It was hard to tell which. I'm very special, like a snowflake made of violence and war crimes. He looked at Geralt. You coming, Jerry? This is your princess's homeland. Seems like you'd want to be there when it gets liberated. Geralt wanted to say no, wanted to walk away from this alliance between monsters and manipulators. But Siri was involved, and that meant he couldn't refuse. I'm coming. Someone needs to make sure you follow the rules. Rules? Alucard scoffed. I'm going to follow them so hard. Like, aggressively follow them. Any Nilfgaardian soldier who makes eye contact is getting followed by 15 bullets and a smile. Yennefer created the portal, a swirling gateway of violet energy leading to the outskirts of Cintra. The occupation force is approximately 2,000 troops, elite warriors, magic users. They're not civilians, but they're not helpless either. 2,000? Alucard's grin widened impossibly. That's adorable. Back home, I took on 3,000 police and federal agents simultaneously. This'll be like a vacation. He stepped toward the portal, then paused. Quick question. Do you ladies have popcorn in this dimension? Because Jerry's going to want snacks for this show. Just go, Philippa said tiredly. Going. Alucard stepped through, Geralt following behind, with a sense of impending doom. The portal closed, and the lodge sat in silence. We just unleashed him on an army, Margarita said quietly. We unleashed him on the right army, Philippa corrected. For now, his chaos serves our purposes. And when it doesn't, her blind eyes somehow conveyed absolute certainty. We'll deal with that problem when it arrives. And if we can't? Shiala asked. No one had an answer for that. Alucard and Geralt emerged on a hillside overlooking Cintra. The coastal city-state spread below them, beautiful even under occupation. Nilfgaardian banners flew from the palace. Patrol units marched through streets. Guard posts dotted every corner. 2,000 professional soldiers thinking they were safe behind fortifications and numbers. "You know what I love about military targets?" Alucard said conversationally, loading his guns with methodical precision. "They're all armed, all trained, all ready for violence. Which means when I start killing them, it's not murder, it's war." "And war?" His eyes blazed crimson. War never gets old. Geralt watched the vampire check his weapons, adjust his coat, and crack his neck like a boxer preparing for a fight. The Lodge wants military only. Command structure and soldiers. Not servants, not civilians sheltering in the palace. I heard the rules, Jerry. I'm not deaf. Alucard holstered his pistols and looked down at the occupied city. Military targets only. Quick question, though. If a soldier runs away screaming, is he still a military target? Asking for a friend. If he's armed and in uniform, yes. Perfect. Alucard's form began to shift, shadows pouring off him like smoke. His presence expanded, becoming something vast and terrible. Then let's go liberate a kingdom. I'll take the palace. You handle any stragglers. And Jerry? He looked back, grinning. Try to keep up. Then he was gone. A red and black meteor falling toward Cintra's palace like judgment from an angry god. Geralt sighed, drew his silver sword, and followed at a more reasonable pace. Behind them, the night sky lit up with crimson light as Alucard introduced himself to the Ard Feainn Righ. It was going to be a long night. The Ard Feainn Righ had conquered half the continent. They were Nilfgaard's elite. Soldiers trained from childhood, veterans of a dozen campaigns, men who'd burned cities and broken armies. They feared nothing because they'd seen everything war could offer. Then their world exploded in gunfire and laughter. Alucard hit the palace courtyard like a meteor, cratering the cobblestones and sending a shockwave that shattered every window in the vicinity. Soldiers scattered, some reaching for weapons, others frozen in shock at the figure rising from the impact zone. "Good evening, gentlemen." Alucard's voice boomed across the courtyard, amplified by supernatural projection. "My name is Alucard, and I'm here to discuss your employment, specifically. Know how you're all about to be terminated." The first volley of crossbow bolts came immediately. Professional soldiers responding to threats with trained efficiency. 20 bolts, all aimed at center mass, all striking true. All passing through Alucard's body like he was made of smoke. "Ooh, workplace violence," he said cheerfully as his form solidified. "I love it. Really sets the tone." The jackal came out, and he fired into the nearest cluster of soldiers. The 13mm explosive rounds did what they were designed to do. Turned armored men into red mist and screaming. The courtyard erupted into chaos. Commander Keira Mawar Diffrin Ep Shealak emerged from the palace proper, his black armor gleaming in the firelight. He was young for his rank, but had earned it through brutal competence. A one look at the carnage told him everything. Supernatural threat, extreme danger, required immediate overwhelming force. "Mages," he roared. "Bring it down." 4 Nilfgaardian battle mages emerged from the guard towers, hands already weaving combat spells. Fire erupted from multiple directions, converging on Alucard in a coordinated strike that would have incinerated a lesser vampire. Alucard stood in the flames, let them wash over him, then looked up at the mages with a grin. "Fire? Really? That's your opening move?" He raised both pistols. "Let me show you how we handle mages back home." The castle and jackal fired simultaneously, blessed and explosive rounds crossing the courtyard in less than a second. 2 mages died instantly, one missing his head, the other folded in half by the explosive impact. The remaining 2 erected magical shields. the barriers shimmering as they desperately reinforced. Alucard was already moving. He crossed the 100-foot distance in the time it took to blink, appearing in front of the third mage with his hand extended. The shield shattered like glass. His fingers wrapped around the mage's throat, lifting him off the ground. "You know what's funny?" Alucard asked conversationally as the mage choked. "In my world, we have anti-magic rounds, bullets that disrupt spells. But you know what works even better?" He squeezed, and there was a wet cracking sound. Regular violence. The body dropped. The fourth mage fired a lightning bolt at point-blank range. Enough electricity to stop a heart, fry synapses, turn organs to cooked meat. Alucard caught the lightning in his hand, held it like a ball of angry energy, and then threw it back. The mage's own spell cooked him from the inside out. His death scream cut short as his lungs boiled. Keira watched this with growing horror. 4 battle mages, men who destroyed siege engines and scattered armies, eliminated in under 20 seconds. This wasn't a vampire. This was something worse. "Form up," he commanded. "Shield wall, pikes forward." The Ard Feainn Righ responded with professional discipline, forming defensive lines, overlapping shields, pike formations that could hold against cavalry charges. 50 men in the courtyard, another 100 rushing from barracks, all moving with practiced coordination. It wouldn't matter. Alucard looked at the shield wall and started laughing. "Oh, you're doing formations. That's adorable. You think tactics matter against me? Okay. Let me try something fun." His form began to shift, shadows expanding, his body becoming multiple versions of himself. "Let's see. Eeny, meeny, miny, all of you." He split into 5 separate Alucards, each one solid, each one grinning, each one drawing weapons. The soldiers' disciplined formation fractured as they tried to track multiple targets, moving at supernatural speed. One Alucard phased through the shield wall, appearing behind the formation and opening fire. Another dropped from above, landing on shields hard enough to crush the men beneath. A third simply walked forward, letting pikes stab through him before regenerating and shooting his attackers at point-blank range. The courtyard became an abattoir. Geralt reached the palace gates to find the main entrance already breached. Soldiers fleeing in terror, even the sound of gunfire mixed with manic laughters echoing from inside. He pushed through, silver sword drawn, and nearly collided with a group of panicked Nilfgaardians. "Monster!" one of them screamed. "There's a monster in the throne room." "I know," Geralt said tiredly. "I brought him." "Is Commander Keira still alive?" "The commander's fighting it," another soldier gasped. "But it's killing everyone. It's laughing while it kills everyone." Geralt moved deeper into the palace. Bodies lined the corridors, all soldiers, he noted. Alucard was keeping his word about civilian targets. The kills were brutal but focused. Military only. He found the vampire in what had been Cintra's throne room. Alucard stood at the center, surrounded by corpses, his coat soaked in blood that wasn't his own. Keira faced him, sword drawn, breathing hard, and the young commander was skilled. Geralt could see that from his stance, his positioning, but skill meant nothing here. "You're good," Alucard said, genuinely complimentary. "Fast reflexes, smart tactics. You've stayed alive longer than your friends. That takes talent." He holstered his guns. "Tell you what, I'll fight you with just swords. Make it sporting. Hell, I'll even let you go first." Keira's eyes narrowed. "I don't need your pity, demon." "It's not pity," Alucard protested. "It's respect. You've got balls standing here when everyone else ran. That deserves recognition." He produced a sword from nowhere, a wicked blade that seemed to drink light. "So come on." Show me what Nilfgaard's finest can do before I paint the walls with you. Keira moved. A perfect thrust aimed at the heart, followed by a spin slash at the neck, and then a pommel strike at the temple. Professional swordsmanship executed flawlessly. Alucard parried every strike with lazy precision, his own blade moving just enough to redirect Keira's sword. Nice. Good form. But you're telegraphing. See, you dip your shoulder before the thrust. There, that's the tell. He blocked another combo. Also, your footwork's solid, but you're compensating for an old wound. Left leg, right? Took an arrow there, maybe 5 years ago. How? Keira gasped. I fought for centuries. I can read bodies like books. Alucard's blade moved, a casual slash that Keira barely dodged. You're a good soldier, competent commander, probably decent person by your culture standards. But you made one mistake. His tone darkened. You occupied the wrong city. The next strike was faster than Keira could track. Alucard's blade took his sword hand off at the wrist, the limb tumbling away. The commander screamed, falling to his knees. Now, Alucard said, his playfulness evaporating. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to survive. I'm leaving you alive specifically so you can deliver a message to Emperor Emhyr var Emreis. He knelt down, forcing Keira to meet his crimson eyes. You tell him that Cintra is closed for business. Any Nilfgaardian troops found in this city after dawn will experience what your men experienced tonight. You tell him that there's a new power on the continent, and that power is bored, violent, and looking for worthy opponents. You tell him, his grin returned, that if he wants to negotiate, he can send someone entertaining. Otherwise, I start working my way south toward his capital. Geralt stepped forward. On Alucard, he's delivered. Let him go. The vampire stood, sheathing his blade. Fine. But Jerry, I'm keeping the palace. It's got good bones, dramatic architecture, and it's soaked in blood now. Really ties the aesthetic together. Keira stumbled to his feet, cradling his stump, and fled. Smart man. Alucard surveyed the carnage with satisfaction. 2,000 troops down to maybe 50 survivors. Entire occupation force eliminated, and I only violated like 3 of the Lodge's rules. 4 if we're being technical. But that guy technically lunged at me first. How many civilian casualties? Geralt asked, dreading the answer. 0, Alucard said proudly. Well, 0 I caused. Found some locked in the dungeons, though. Political prisoners, resistance fighters. Let them out. Figured that counted as liberating. He paused. There was one servant who tried to attack me with a kitchen knife. Very brave. Respected that. Disarmed him non-lethally, literally. He'll live. Geralt examined the throne room, the corridors, the courtyard. All military casualties, all armed combatants. Alucard had kept his word. The Lodge will be pleased, Geralt said. Fuck the Lodge, Alucard replied cheerfully. I didn't do this for them. I did it because slaughtering an elite military force is my idea of a Tuesday night. He stretched, joints popping. Now, where's Keira? She owes me dimensional portal tutoring. I've got interdimensional wraiths to murder, and I'm feeling motivated. Outside, dawn was breaking over Cintra. The Nilfgaardian occupation had lasted 3 years. Alucard had ended it in 6 hours. And survivors would spread the story of the vampire in red who laughed while killing, who moved faster than sight, who couldn't be hurt and wouldn't stop. Some would call it propaganda. Others would recognize truth. Either way, the continent had changed. There was a new apex predator in play, and it was only getting started. The Wild Hunt's fortress existed between dimensions. a citadel of ice and ancient elven architecture suspended in the spaces where reality grew thin. Eredin paced its halls, his armor clicking with frost, while Keira lay recovering in the medical chambers. The navigator had survived Alucard's assault, but barely. The vampire had torn something fundamental from him, stolen knowledge that should have been impossible to extract. "He's coming," Keira rasped from his bed. "The anomaly. He has my knowledge, my coordinates. The dimensional pathways are open to him now." "Let him come," Aridan said, though his confidence was manufactured. "This is our domain. Here, we are gods. One vampire, no matter how powerful, cannot stand against the full might of the Wild Hunt." "You didn't see what I saw," Keira insisted. "When he tore into my mind, it wasn't just theft, it was consumption. He doesn't learn magic, he devours it, absorbs it, makes it part of himself." The navigator's hands shook. "Commander, that thing has millions of souls inside it, an army. If he releases them here, then we'll destroy them." Eredin interrupted. "Summon all riders, every warrior we have. If this vampire wants war, we'll give him genocide." Throughout the fortress, horns blew. The Wild Hunt assembled 300 riders, the full strength of their interdimensional raiding force. Elven warriors who'd conquered spheres, enslaved populations, hunted across realities for millennia. They gathered in the central courtyard, spectral horses pawing at ground that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Eredin stood before them, his presence commanding absolute attention. "A dimensional anomaly threatens our home. An abomination from a foreign sphere seeks to challenge us here in our seat of power." His voice carried across the assembled warriors. "Show him why we are called the Wild Hunt. Show him what happens to those who dare invade our domain." The warriors roared approval, weapons raised, ice magic crackling in the air. Then reality tore open, not a portal, not a gateway. Reality simply ripped, a wound in existence that bled crimson light and the screams of the damned. Through it stepped Alucard, his coat billowing in dimensional winds, his grin wide enough to split his face. "Honey, I'm home," he announced, his voice echoing across impossible architecture. "And I brought friends." Shadows exploded from behind him, not his shape-shifting, but actual souls, and the millions of lives he'd consumed over centuries, now given temporary form. They poured through the rift like a flood of the damned, each one a person he'd killed, each one screaming with his voice, each one moving with his will. An army of Alucard fought an army of elves. The Wild Hunt charged, 300 of the deadliest warriors in any dimension riding toward the vampire horde. Ice magic froze the first wave of souls solid. Swords cleaved through shadowy forms. Spells that could shatter mountains tore through the possessed army. And every soul destroyed simply reformed, pulling itself back together from scattered essence, laughing with Alucard's voice. "You can't kill what's already dead," 1,000 Alucards shouted in unison. "We are legend, we are eternal. Ekken, we are having the time of our unlives." Geralt and Keira emerged through a more conventional portal behind Alucard's position, the sorceress having used her dimensional expertise to create a stable pathway. They found themselves in a fortress under siege, watching as one vampire's soul army clashed with interdimensional raiders in a battle that violated every known law of magical combat. "This is insane," Keira breathed, her analytical mind struggling to process what she was seeing. "He's sustaining millions of individual manifestations simultaneously. The magical energy required." "He's not using magic," Geralt said, watching the battle. "He's using hatred. Every soul he consumed, every person he killed, they're all here, all fighting with his rage." In the center of the chaos, the original Alucard walked calmly through the battle, nor his soul copies doing the heavy fighting. He was looking for something specific, someone specific. Eredin met him halfway. The Wild Hunt's commander had abandoned his mount, recognizing this required personal attention. His blade was ancient elven steel that could cut between dimensions. His armor was forged in spheres where physics bent differently. He was, by any measure, one of the most dangerous beings in existence. Alucard looked at him and grinned. "Finally," the vampire said. "The main event. No projection, no retreat, just you and me and murder." He drew his pistols. "Let's see if you're as tough as you think you are." They collided in an explosion of power that sent shockwaves through the fortress. Aridan moved with supernatural speed, his blade aimed at vital points with precision earned through millennia of combat. Alucard met him with guns and shadows, shooting at point-blank range while regenerating from wounds that would have killed gods. The duel was catastrophic. Eredin's blade took Alucard's head off. The vampire shot Eredin through the chest. Both regenerated, one through dimensional magic tied to his fortress, the other through pure vampiric immortality. They fought across the courtyard, through walls, across towers that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space. "You're good," Alucard shouted, genuine excitement in his voice as Eredin's sword pierced his heart. "Better than good. You're actually making me try." "You cannot win," Eredin snarled, tearing the blade upward to bisect the vampire. "This fortress is my domain. Every stone, every breath of air, every fraction of reality here bends to my will." "Then let's break it." Alucard's form exploded outward, becoming something vast and terrible. His final restriction released. Level 0. The souls that had been fighting as copies suddenly merged back into him, 3 million lives compressed into one apocalyptic entity. Releasing control art restriction systems to level 0. Situation: the bird of Hermes is my name, eating my wings to make me tame. The fortress began to crack. Alucard's true form emerged. Not a man, not a vampire, but a concept given flesh. The Count, Dracula, Vlad Tepes. Every name, every identity, every iteration of the vampire legend compressed into one being that existed across multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously. He was a blood-red tide that consumed everything it touched, a swarm of bats with human screams, a shadow with millions of eyes, a man in a red coat who grinned while reality bent around him. Eredin's eyes widened behind his helm. For the second time in his ancient existence, he felt true fear. "What are you?" the commander whispered. "I'm the punishment for every sin you've committed." Alucard's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "Every person you've enslaved, every sphere you've raided, every innocent life you've stolen. I'm the bill coming due, and the interest is catastrophic." The final clash lasted 3 seconds. Alucard's form wrapped around Eredin like a cocoon of blood and shadow. The commander's dimensional defenses shattered, his armor cracked, his connection to the fortress severed as something infinitely more powerful overwrote his claim to this space. When the shadows receded, Eredin fell to his knees, his sword shattered, his armor broken, alive but defeated. "I could kill you," Alucard said, his form condensing back to something resembling human. "Absorb you, add you to my collection. But you know what?" He looked around at the frozen fortress, at the wild hunt riders who'd stopped fighting to stare in horror. "I'm feeling generous. Here's the deal. You stop hunting the girl. Siri, the elder blood-bearer. You leave her alone, you leave this sphere alone, and I won't come back here and turn your entire civilization into part of my soul collection." And if we refuse? Eredin asked through gritted teeth. Alucard's grin widened. Then I come back. Not to fight, not to duel. I'll just open a rift and let all 3 million souls pour through. Let them consume this fortress, this dimension, like everyone you've ever known. I'll turn your entire species into a footnote in my autobiography. He leaned down, forcing Aridan to meet his eyes. And trust me, I've done it before. The Nazis learned. The Vatican learned. The British government learned. And now you're learning. There are things in the multiverse you don't fuck with. I'm one of them. The silence was absolute. Finally, Aridan spoke, his voice hollow with defeat. We accept. The girl is no longer our concern. Excellent. Alucard straightened, his cheerful demeanor returning instantly. See, negotiation works. No further apocalypse necessary. Though I'll be honest, I was kinda hoping you'd say no. That would have been so much more entertaining. He looked at his soul army, still manifested throughout the fortress. All right, everyone, back in the vampire. Show's over. The souls dissolved, flowing back into Alucard like water circling a drain. 3 million lives compressed back into one body that shouldn't have been able to contain them, but did anyway. Geralt and Keira approached cautiously, both staring at the defeated Wild Hunt with expressions of disbelief. You actually did it, Keira said quietly. You defeated the Wild Hunt in their own dimension. Yep, Alucard said proudly. Wasn't even that hard. Well, okay, it was kinda hard. Eredin's good, but I'm better, and more importantly, he gestured at the devastated fortress. I'm crazier. Never underestimate the power of being completely unhinged. Eredin remained on his knees, broken but alive. Around him, the Wild Hunt stood in shocked silence. Their invincibility shattered, their pride destroyed, on their very purpose called into question. Time to go home, Alucard announced. Jerry, grab the sorceress. I'm opening a portal back to the continent, and I'm doing it in style. He raised his hand, and reality bent. Not tore, bent. A clean gateway that respected dimensional boundaries rather than violating them, using Caranthir's stolen knowledge refined through Keira's tutoring and Alucard's complete disregard for safety regulations. They stepped through, leaving the Wild Hunt's fortress behind. The portal closed. In the throne room of his dimensional citadel, Eredin finally stood. His warriors looked to him for leadership, for reassurance, for some indication of what came next. We rebuild, he said simply. No, and we remember. There are worse things in the multiverse than us. It was the closest thing to wisdom the Wild Hunt had spoken in millennia. The continent would never be the same. Word spread quickly, carried by terrified soldiers, whispered by sorceresses, sung by bards who didn't quite believe their own tales. A vampire in red had liberated Cintra in a single night. The Wild Hunt, terror of dimensions, had been beaten in their own fortress and forced to negotiate. An unkillable monster walked the land, and nobody knew what it would do next. Alucard stood atop Cintra's palace, watching the sunrise paint the coastal city in gold and crimson. Behind him, the city was already beginning to rebuild. Refugees returned. Resistance fighters emerged from hiding. The Nilfgaardian occupation was over, ended not by armies or politics, but by one bored vampire looking for entertainment. So what now? Geralt asked, joining him on the rooftop. The Witcher looked exhausted. 3 days of traveling between dimensions and witnessing apocalyptic violence would do that. Good question, Alucard said cheerfully. I've conquered the local death squad, traumatized an empire, and made friends with magical government conspirators. I'm running out of obvious targets. He thought for a moment. Maybe I'll open a bar? Alucard's Apocalypse Tavern. Come for the drinks, stay because you're terrified to leave. Has a nice ring to it. You can't stay here forever, Geralt said. Eventually you'll get bored. And when you get bored, I get creative. Alucard finished. Yeah, I know. It's a problem. Back home, Integra kept me focused, gave me purpose. Here? He gestured at the continent spread below them. I'm just a weapon without a target, a punchline without a joke, a very sexy apocalypse waiting to happen. The Lodge wants to use you, Geralt warned. Point you at their enemies, make you their monster. Let them try. Alucard's grin widened. I've dealt with secret organizations before. They always think they're in control right up until they realize they're not. The Lodge can make their plans, whisper their schemes, pretend they're puppet masters. But me? He looked at Geralt with those ancient crimson eyes. I'm the chaos variable, the wild card, the thing that breaks carefully laid plans just by existing. Below them, Cintra stirred to life. Market vendors reopening stalls, children playing in streets no longer patrolled by foreign soldiers. Hope, tentative and fragile, returning to a kingdom that had lived under occupation's boot. You saved them, Geralt said quietly, like whether you meant to or not. I murdered 2,000 people for entertainment, Alucard corrected. That they happen to be oppressors is just convenient framing. Don't make me a hero, Jerry. I'm not built for it. Heroes have morals. I have targets and boredom. Keira emerged from a portal on the rooftop, looking haggard but satisfied. The Lodge is pleased. Nilfgaard is in chaos, their elite force wiped out, their Emperor receiving demands he can't refuse. Their expansion halted by threat of supernatural intervention. She looked at Alucard with calculating eyes. They want to know what you want as payment. Payment? Alucard considered this. Tell them I want a list. Every monster, criminal, tyrant, and generally terrible person on this continent who deserves killing, organized by threat level and entertainment value. I'll work my way through it when I get bored. You want them to give you a murder menu, Keira said flatly. Exactly, very efficient. Saves time on research. Alucard stretched, his coat billowing in the ocean breeze. Also tell them if they try to manipulate me, control me, or otherwise treat me like a tool, I'll demonstrate what happens to people who forget I'm a person. A very violent, immortal person, but still technically a person. Keira nodded slowly. I'll relay the message, though I suspect they already know. She left through another portal, leaving Geralt and Alucard alone on the rooftop as morning fully arrived. The Witcher knew he should leave too. Return to the path, hunt monsters, maintain the professional distance that kept him sane. But something kept him there. He watching the vampire who'd accidentally become the continent's most dangerous wildcard. You're wondering if I'm going to snap, Alucard said without looking at him. If one day the boredom will get too intense, and I'll just start killing everything for entertainment. The thought crossed my mind, Geralt admitted. It's a valid concern, Alucard agreed. I've done it before. Whole villages, cities. That one time with the Millennium Project, very messy, lots of Nazis screaming. But here's the thing, Jerry. He finally looked at the Witcher, and for just a moment, the madness receded enough to show something else underneath. Something old and tired and profoundly lonely. I don't want to destroy this world. It's interesting. It's got layers. Magic and monsters and politics and prophecy. It's like home, but sideways. And more importantly? The grin returned. It's got you, my beautiful silver-haired straight man, My voice of reason, my Jiminy Cricket, if Jiminy Cricket was a mutant monster hunter with depression and excellent hair. "I'm not your keeper," Geralt said. "No," Alucard agreed. "But you're my friend, and I haven't had one of those in a while. So I'll try, emphasis on try, not to destroy everything you care about. No promises. But I'll make an effort. For you." It was, Geralt realized, probably the closest thing to sentiment Alucard was capable of expressing. "The girl," Geralt said after a moment. "Siri, the one the Wild Hunt was hunting. She's still out there, still running, still scared. And the Wild Hunt won't touch her," Alucard said firmly. "They know what happens if they do. But you're worried about other threats, other monsters, on other assholes looking to use a scared kid for political gain." "Yes." Alucard was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the ocean. "I'll keep an ear out. If someone threatens your adopted daughter, I'll introduce them to the concept of being turned inside out. No charge. Consider it a friendship discount." Geralt felt something unclench in his chest. Not relief exactly, but acknowledgement. The most dangerous being on the continent had just promised to protect Siri. It should have been terrifying. Somehow, it was comforting. "Thank you," he said. "Don't mention it." Alucard's manic energy returned full force. "Now get out of here. Go do Witcher shit. Hunt monsters. Brood dramatically in taverns. I've got a kingdom to not technically rule and a murder menu to wait for." Geralt left, descending from the rooftop and making his way toward the city gates where Roach waited. Behind him, Alucard remained on the palace, a red figure silhouetted against the morning sun, watching over a city he'd liberated through violence and chaos. The continent had survived the conjunction of spheres. It had endured wars, plagues, and the Wild Hunt's raids. Now it would learn to exist with something new. An immortal vampire god with ADHD, unlimited firepower, and a chronic need for entertainment. Some would call him monster. Others would call him weapon. A few might even call him savior, though he'd laugh at the title. But to those who knew him, really knew him, Alucard was something simpler and infinitely more complicated. He was chaos incarnate, wearing a red coat and a grin, looking for his next thrill in a world that had just gotten infinitely more interesting. The multiverse had thrown its wildest card into the Witcher's universe, and the game would never be the same. Far to the south, Emperor Emhyr var Emreis read reports from Cintra with carefully controlled fury. His elite force destroyed, his expansion halted, his empire held hostage by a single entity that couldn't be killed, bought, or intimidated. He made a decision that would echo through history. Nilfgaard would not engage the vampire. Not yet. Not until they understood exactly what they were dealing with. Retreat wasn't cowardice, it was strategy. And emperors who lived to old age knew when to fight and when to bide their time. In the ruins of the Wild Hunt's fortress, Eredin gave orders to abandon pursuit of elder blood entirely, and the risk was no longer acceptable. Some prey wasn't worth the price. And in countless taverns across the continent, bards began singing songs about the Red Devil of Cintra, the Vampire King, the Laughing Death. The stories would grow with each telling, becoming legend, becoming myth. But those who'd witnessed the truth knew something the stories couldn't capture. The real terror wasn't in what Alucard had done. It was in what he might do next, when boredom inevitably returned and his restraint finally wore thin. The continent held its breath, and Alucard, standing alone on Cintra's palace as the sun climbed higher, smiled at the future stretching before him. Infinite possibilities for violence, chaos, and perhaps, if he was very lucky, something that might actually manage to kill him. "Game on," he whispered to the wind. The wind, wisely, he did not answer.